Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Welcome to Cutting the Distance Field Reports, breaking news from the Elkwoods. And now, your host, Jason Phelps.
Welcome back to another edition of Cutting the Distance Field Reports. I'm here in Oregon with Charlie Smith.
Yo.
Just finishing up our elk hunt we were on. Pretty limited tag in this unit, and we're just going to kind of go over what we saw rut action-wise, what worked, what didn't. We'll probably spend more time on what didn't work since we got a good education on some of these bulls, and they really reacted a lot different than what I'd say we're used to when hunting. So what would you say the overall rut action was here this week, as far as were we hearing bugles? Were we finding elk that wanted to cooperate?
We were able to locate fairly easily. That was good.
Yeah, so I think for the most part, these elk were running the right game. We could get to a high point like we normally would. We could locate, and if there were bulls there, especially on that first bugle, when you show up to an area, that first bugle usually gets them going, and then we would kind of struggle, right? And to maybe getting them to answer a second or third time. So you really had to listen very, very closely for that first bugle to make sure you picked it up, because a lot of times you could sit there, bugle again in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they wouldn't bugle. But sometimes it's one of those things, and I don't know why they do it, but if you maybe wait 20 or 30 minutes, you can probably get them to bugle again. It's almost like they don't want to answer you too many times in a row.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were able to locate and had no problem locating bulls. So that part of our system, our program, we were running our program, was working just fine. But where we started to run into a little bit of a difference here, and our system kind of ran into some trouble, was getting close, cow calling, bugling. Kind of give a little rundown on a typical scenario. We locate a herd bull, we and then give them what we do from there.
Locate a herd bull. We always try and cut the distance. Once we cut the distance to a safe distance from the herd where we don't think we're going to scare them, we might have to locate again, usually with cow calls. Hopefully they respond. Check the distance, figure out where they're at, move closer, and start putting pressure on them. I mean, that's pretty much our thing,
Yep. And on this hunt, a lot of times we would cut the distance. We try not to bugle, but maybe we need to do a little squeal bugle, just something to never get an answer back. If you got too close, under 200-300 yards, they would take their cows and leave. They would give us a couple bugles, round up their cows, and they'd be out of there.
Yeah, and they'd keep a safe distance.
A lot of times on this hunt, we learned early on that, all right, bugling isn't working, so your first instinct is, let's switch it up to cow calls. So we move in very tight, get the wind right, do everything we're supposed to. And I'm talking tight on cow calls. I'm talking most of the time we were under 100 yards, 120. We did get very close to a lot of cows. Didn't really bump them, but we obviously would spot them in the timber. And we would switch to cow calls, and those didn't seem to work. They worked at times, but not very well. Not even on the satellite bulls that are around, which really kind of has me scratching my head. And we've got some theories, and we might dive into it here in a little bit on why these bulls were just not responding to cow calls either.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, usually when you're cow calling near a herd, you always get a satellite come in, 2, 3,
yep.
Little 5s, little 6s, whatever, and it just kind of keeps the momentum going with the herd bull. Sometimes you get those satellites bugling too, and then the herd bull starts bugling a lot.
Yeah, especially in a unit like this with a very high bull to cow ratio, you would expect for there to be a lot of, those semi-mature satellite bulls, that are just looking for any sort of cow. But our theory was maybe they assume that all the cows are already taken by herd bulls, and they're a little bit reluctant to come in to those calls. So we noticed that cow calls weren't as effective as they have been in the past in other units. And, I would say we ran it 10 plus times, right? Once we realized the bugling wasn't working on herd bulls, we'd get in cow call, maybe get a response or two, wasn't really interested, and then either the cows would get frustrated with us and kind of bugger out, or the bull would just, not even respond. They would just keep in their pattern and hang out.
Yeah, then the next time they would respond, they'd be 300-400 yards out. That's just...
Yeah, and one thing I want to talk about a little bit, I would say there are wolves in this unit kind of scattered out. We only really found like a high concentration in one area that was completely void of elk for how pristine of elk habitat it was.
The most perfect elk habitat, period.
And
beautiful.
No elk to be seen, completely void. And I'm not exaggerating. We probably walked 2 miles of road on the top end, 2 miles of road on the bottom end, and no exaggeration, there was a pile of wolf crap every 10 to 15 feet on this road, the entire length.
I've never seen so much wolf dookie.
Yeah. The first day we went through an area, looked really good, just like everything else we've hunted this entire time. Went in, we found a wallow so you could see what's been around, in the mud. And sure enough, we seen more wolf and cougar tracks than we did elk, which, I'm not saying that the rest of the area wasn't good. It's obvious that there are some dead zones in here. And so there were some days or times where we really wanted to check an area out and just void of elk, which, so the wolves had a little effect, but I wouldn't blame, wolves on non-vocal elk necessarily. We do think one day maybe they had moved through an area and kind of made some elk quiet because they were still there, and it was obvious. But
I mean, seeing the tracks on the road and stuff, it just kind of makes me feel like that the elk aren't going to respond as easy. But I mean, even with a few tracks and stuff here and there, we were able to get them to talk. But it seemed like when you got closer is when they just wouldn't say anything.
Yep. Running. Let's jump in a little bit because we always promote kind of running our system. And I think we found ourselves wanting to always go back to that because we even talk about it. Like our system, I would say, works 20, 30% of the time. It's not fail-proof, right? But it works enough times that eventually it's going to work. You put enough pressure on the bull, you set up enough times, eventually getting close enough to that herd bull's cows, close enough to him, and challenging him will work. Or if there's satellites around, you get close enough to the herd, potentially pull the herd bull off with cow calls. So we do a very methodical system, and I think, as we mentioned earlier, found out it wasn't going to work, but we would go into setups, right, saying we weren't going to call it all.
Yep.
And we go right back to calling it. It's just you feel like it's eventually going to work. Like, maybe our odds are lower, maybe it's 10% in this unit. But we found ourselves every time, we're not going to call, we're not going to do anything. You just instinctively go back to it. And I think that's one of my biggest takeaways is we should have adapted earlier and been a little bit more like steadfast in.
We're too stubborn.
Yeah.
We like to do it the way we do it. That's the thing.
Yeah. We've been doing it for 25 plus years, maybe more than that. And it's worked so well so many times.
Yeah.
That it's tough to go in there. And this is where, like, my biggest takeaway, maybe we should have just flat out, like, stuck to a different system. We'll keep that in mind. And I'm more worried in future hunts that I'm gonna be scared to death to bugle now just because of all the results we got here.
I'm not. My next hunt, I'm bugling.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go bugle in your face. I don't care. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll fail how I know best.
We've all seen plenty of gadgets and fads come and go, but here's one product that stood the test of time. Seafoam motor treatment. Lots of hunters and anglers know that seafoam helps engines run better and last longer. It's really simple. When you pour it in your gas tank, seafoam cleans harmful fuel deposits that cause engine problems. I'm talking common stuff like hard starts, rough engine performance, or lost fuel economy. Seafoam is an easy way to prevent or overcome these problems.
Just pour a can in your gas tank and let it clean your fuel system. You probably know someone who has used a can of Seafoam to get their truck or boat going again. People everywhere rely on Seafoam to keep their trucks, boats, and small engines running the way that they should the entire season. Help your engine run better and last longer. Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
So towards the, probably about halfway through the hunt, the writing was on the wall. We're gonna have to hunt these things like mule deer, which is a little bit frustrating because we come out in the woods with an idea of how we want to hunt these elk, right? We want to find a bull that's bugling, we want to find a bull that wants to be called in, and we want to run the game our way. We want to get bugles, we want stuff bugling in our face. We did get that, but a lot of times it was a bugle in our face right before they left, with the cows. So I want to jump into another challenge on this hunt, which archery hunting, very, very difficult. Rifle hunt, of course, it would have been easier, but this area has a burn that went through it, and it changed the dynamic of, we always talk about having terrain and vegetation for cover so we can move in close. What this brush did was put us exposed 90% of the time out in the open, and number two, it was louder than hell. Number three, it gave you very, very little possibility to ever set up and shoot, because even when we did call bulls in, their vitals were going to be completely covered, with brush. And so jump into a little bit of how this brush kind of changed our hunt. We focused on a certain bull for 2.5 days, and then ultimately we just had to
it's literally trying to get him to be in the perfect spot, which there wasn't very many perfect situations, where he would actually give us a shot. I mean, it's like you got to move with these elk as they're going to their feed or bed and hope that they get in these little, I'd say, semi-open areas, which there's not very many of them.
Yeah, and this is where, as an elk hunter, I struggle. It's easy for me to tell everybody, you just have to know that there's no light at the end of this plan. If you're going into these areas and you're hunting on a 1 or 2% chance of success, and you're really just hoping and praying, we just had to finally, we looked at each other and we're like, we got to get out of here. Yeah. We're never going to kill this bull. With where he's feeding in a burn and he's bedding in a burn with even taller brush, we cannot physically kill him.
We didn't have the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
maybe
if you had 3 weeks to work the same bull,
you would wait for him to be in the optimum spot, which we kind of got him in on one attempt, but once again, we weren't really privy to how these cows were going to react. We thought we were dialed, right? We moved into within 70 yards of this bull.
That was a high percentage of having good success on that.
His cows were there. Wind was perfect. We were real, real close. So on this instance, I think we raked before we bugled, right? Or did we? Maybe you bugled first, and he hit us right back.
Yeah.
And then we went to some raking, and I could see the bull face us at about 70 yards. I'm like, oh, this is gold, and he screamed at you again. I think you bugled back one more time on your second bugle. His cows didn't like it, and they went out. And then sure as crap, sometimes in that instance, don't leave when cows spook, right? Because a lot of times that bull will either push him off or they just know to leave and he's going to stand his ground and do his thing. Mm-hmm. But in this instance, I seen the cows go and then he was right behind them.
Yep, he just kept going.
Which, so I always give it time. And if you don't know that bull left, just stay. But yeah, everything you did right. We couldn't have got any tighter to this bull. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Finally, we hunted him 2 more days. You have to just weigh your options and the chances of actually killing him. Another thing, on this hunt in particular, these bulls have a higher age class. They're experienced. They've had all these calls thrown at them. There are a lot of spike hunters in the woods. On these type of units, there's 20 guys hunting for one person's tag. There are people everywhere. Educated bulls.
Every landing, every
gate, every road, every spot a person can be. So very pressured, very educated elk. One thing I want to talk about, which we got bit by multiple times, is you get in on a bull, bugle, and then you assume that he left, or you assume that he's no longer there because maybe you've seen him walk off. We would give it some time, knowing that there's the possibility he would still be there. These big bulls will literally take 3 steps and wait for you to show yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not very patient. We're not very patient. But just one thing to keep in mind that we could have maybe saved a few more of these stalks or situations is always assume that bull's still there. Move very carefully with brush, trees, vegetation in your way of where you last seen him go, and try not to expose yourself, where he's going to be able to pick you off. Or don't provide him a different angle, because a lot of times it seems like they move off just enough that they're trying to pick you off at a different angle, versus if you can stalk straight in on where you've seen him, keep some brush. But multiple times we would come around a tree and there'd be a cow or a bull.
They're a lot more patient than we are.
Yep.
I mean, it's their home. I don't know. It was tough.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to know, I was able to just come from New Mexico, where you hear a bugle and it sounds like you can see him and you're like, oh, that's a mile away, and I can hear a bugle plain as day. Here, Pacific Northwest, denser, thicker timber, everything we heard was way closer than we thought. And that's one thing to keep in mind. Like, we should have recalibrated our brains a little bit, because we got caught multiple times moving in too close, where it was just because we were calibrated to like, oh, that bull's, way out there, when really they were pretty dang close. So we needed to just slow down a little bit. And
yeah, because then by the time we figured it out, we were too close and they were already leaving.
Yep.
Because they seen us coming.
Yeah, one thing to note. But no, rut action seems to be going good here. It has some high days, where the rut seems to be rolling, and then the next day will be shut off. But definitely doing good enough here in Oregon. The rut's going, and these are just some little takeaways from the way we normally hunt to the way we should have hunted this unit. But good hunt. I was happy with the action. We're out here to play the game, and Oregon didn't necessarily disappoint.
No, it was fun. I mean, we had a lot of good action. It was good hunting.
So, yeah.
Saw some nice bulls, some real nice bulls.
Yeah. Thank you for
coming
and be my caller and trying to help out. We haven't hunted together since 2017. I was able to call you in a little 6x5 on that hunt, and we haven't really hunted since then.
No, that was a fun hunt too.
Yeah. Now I'm a little nervous that after hunting with you, there's a little
curse.
Yeah, I don't believe in any of that stuff, but I'm a little nervous because you've had a stretch of bad luck, and I'm afraid it maybe might rub off a little bit. So
yeah, kind of like it did to another friend of ours.
Yeah. No, I'm not worried about it. We'll be we'll get back at it. We're heading to Idaho next. So hopefully I'm heading to Idaho. You're heading home.
I'm heading home. I'm gonna go hunt rosies with the muzzleloader.
There you go. Well, good luck on that. Appreciate you being out here. Oregon's been fun. Look forward to next time we get to hunt together. But that is the field report from here in Oregon. Hope everybody's having a good season.
See ya.
Bye.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. Simply pour a can in your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season.
Pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.